Well, better late than never to talk about this movie, huh? Hey, what is up, you guys? It is me, Sam Nova 198 again, and today I'm doing my very delayed and very long-awaited review of Dune Part 2. That's right, it's finally out after about 3 weeks of being in theaters, and I know probably everybody has seen it already, so this review is kind of late. But hey, I always say, hey, a film critic is never early, nor is he late. Is that how this thing go? Anyways, Dune Part 2, it's been out for a few weeks. I actually saw it twice in theaters. I saw it actually on opening night on February 29th, but I decided to wait until I saw it again to really form an opinion on it, to see if my opinion had changed or if it had gotten better, if it had gotten worse. So I saw the movie twice, and this has been, to be quite honest, my most anticipated movie for the last 2 years. I was super hyped for it in 2023, but then it was delayed due to the writer's strike and the Writers Guild and Actors Guild of America strike of last year. And that was a huge disappointment for me because last year was not great for movies. Mostly second half. I mean, we did get Godzilla -1, so I guess that's a win. I'm not sure, but I was super excited for this movie. He actually got advance tickets to go see it opening night with friends, and then a week later after I saw it again. And what did I think of it? Well, let's talk about the story. So the story for Dune Part 2 picks up right where Dune Part 1 ended. Paul has met up with the Fremen, and now he's trying to learn the way to be a warrior like the Fremen and get revenge against the Harkonnens for killing his father. Because in a lot of ways, Paul is dealing with a lot of anger and rage against them for what the Harkonnen family did, but at the same time, it focuses on the Emperor side of things, the Emperor of the Universe, Emperor Shaddam, played by Christopher Walken, and you see basically he's kind of just like, not really like sure, because he's like, he loved Paul's father, Duke Leto Atreides, and it kind of leads to a very interesting question. And as the movie goes on, you start to see Paul, well, the character of Paul, go from being this humble prince, prince of the Atreides bloodline and prince of Arrakis, to this leader leading an entire army against the Emperor Shaddam's forces. And the whole film is basically him training, but also you do get more of expansions on stuff like the Harkonnen homeworld, the Harkonnen like lineage, and it's overall a movie that is just about pretty much expanding everything that Dune Part 1 built up. And that's what I really loved about the story here, because weirdly enough in Dune Part 2, they really saw that people were like, yeah, some people weren't really clicking with the whole vibe of Dune Part 1. They felt it was kind of a little lifeless, which the story in Dune Part 2, there's so many twists and turns, and just I feel like the scale and scope of the story and how crazy it gets and how much more just, I know people have said this before, but the story in this really does feel just like this epic, like this sci-fi epic that we have not seen the likes of, I think, ever. Like, it is just, the story here just takes so many twists and turns. I'll talk about it in a spoiler video, but it's a really good story that left me guessing about where this was all going to go and how was this going to end. And I gotta say, I really liked how it seems overwhelming when you first look into it, but on a second viewing you realize there's a lot more. I kind of understand where this is going on a second viewing, but even on my first viewing with the story, it just feels like this, you're immersed into the world and you really do care about these characters. Like, there is a scene towards the end of Dune part of this movie where I was just like, damn, like that was wicked. Like, that was insane how crazy that final fight was. But it just really is a story that I felt like we needed right now, in terms of just scale, in terms of like being like well written and well told and even well acted. I'll talk about the acting in a minute, but this, I thought the story here was fantastic. It felt like the proper continuation. Everything, in my opinion, felt just like the first movie, but expanded it more and just gave you a lot more emotion. Like, there's a point in the movie where I was just like, oh shit. Like, there was a lot of oh shit moments, but it was, there was just also some funny moments here and there too. But the story here in Dune Part 2, I thought was fantastic, and I really, really did love it. Now let's move on to the acting. I thought everybody did a great job all across the board. I thought Timothée Chalamet did a great job as Paul. I thought Javier Bardem was really good as Stilgar. He actually had a lot of moments that genuinely did get a laugh out of me, which wasn't really much from the first movie I got of. But there was a lot of moments that genuinely did really surprise me. Like, there's a point where Zendaya has this moment where she's just like, she doesn't say anything, but you can just tell the look on her face. She's just like, damn, this shit's getting crazy now. Like, I don't know if I like where this is going. It was a story that the acting all across the board was great. I thought Dave Bautista was great as Raban, the Beast Raban. I thought he was both threatening, but he was also really, like, just menacing as, like, this just brutal general. But also, also, I think the big standout of this movie, in my opinion, was definitely Austin Butler as Fedorov. I heard Chris Stuckman compared his design in the movie, Fedorov's design, as to Frieza. And yeah, they does look a lot like Frieza. Like, there's this whole moment in the movie where they're on the Harkonnen homeworld KD Prime, and I'm not even kidding when I say, like, this is like when they first show him off, I was like, damn, he's a beast. Like, and this took me recently to realize there's this one scene I'm gonna talk about in spoilers, but section later, but there's a whole point in the movie where, like, you see him and he's just this horrifying monster. Like, he does not have much sympathy for anybody. If you fuck up, he will definitely kill you. And he was terrifying. And there's a line he says, and I was like, damn, that's some cold shit right there. But he was great in the movie, and the makeup on him looked awesome. And much like Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron, as Baron Battlemere Harkonnen, I thought he was great too. Like, he was, like, just the voice, just the threat he had in the movie. But I think Austin Butler did steal the show in terms of the villains this time around. The villains, in my opinion, are much stronger, and I feel like get a lot more development. Like, that was one issue I did have with the last movie. I felt like they didn't really focus on Raban, but they focused on him a lot more in this movie. And when Fade Rotha comes in, it's crazy how awesome he was. And I thought one of the final scenes of the movie with him was just outstanding. And I also did like Christopher Walken too in the movie. I felt like he was kind of a little, not out of place, but he just kind of felt like was like kind of taken out a little bit. I could tell everybody was who they were. Like, I knew Javier Bardem was doing a good job as Stilgar, but when I saw Christopher Walken as Shaddam, didn't really get Emperor. I saw him where I was like, oh, it's Christopher Walken. Which isn't a bad thing. I did like Christopher Walken as Shaddam, but I just couldn't separate it at times. But now let's move on to the visual effects, and I'm going to move on to other stuff I didn't like after that. So let's move on to scale, scope, let's go on to visual effects and music. Focuses too much on visuals, but god damn was this movie gorgeous. Like, I saw this in a big theater. It wasn't IMAX. It was Cinemark XD, but I saw it in my both viewings. But this movie was just incredible to see in a large format. Like, one of my favorite scenes in the movie on Giddy Prime, it's in black and white, but from what I read, it wasn't in black and white. It was actually in infrared. It looked fucking gorgeous. Like, how bright it was, the black sun. And there's a scene where fireworks are shooting up. They look kind of like, you know, when you drop like I guess like some ink into like a pool of water. They kind of looked like it was like ink blots like exploding. It looked so cool, and it looked gorgeous too. The visual effects this time around, I think it's because they had a bigger budget, but the visual effects this time around looked even better. Like, when the sandworms show up, like, at times, they look incredible. And so many shots of this movie I would just put in a painting. I wish I could just put on, like, it looked like I just wish I could put up as, like, a picture on my wall. Like, there's a scene where Paul is walking in the desert. It's in the trailer, and you see like a sandworm, like, emerge from behind him. It looked so cool, and I'm just like, I was so stunned at how gorgeous this movie was. 'Cause every single scene in this movie felt like just this frame, like a picture perfect like photo. It looked so good, and also the music this time around, I loved how immersive it made me feel. I will say one thing. I did notice with Gady Prime, it looked like something out of like an H.R. Geiger style like painting. It looked really cool. But music, I'm moving back to music. I'm kind of all over the place because I thought this movie was incredible. But this was just, wow, visually and sound design was outstanding. I really, really did love that aspect of the movie, and the story, with the story and acting and being great. I just feel like this was just the perfect continuation for Dune Part 2. For Dune Part 1, I mean. Alright, now let's move on to something I wasn't too crazy about. Okay, in terms of something I wasn't crazy about, it's a bit of a spoiler, but there was a scene towards the end between a character and a confrontation. It's not the final part, but it's closer to that. When it was close, it was right at the end of the. It was like middle of the final act. There was a scene where I was just I was like, all right, we're gonna have this big fight between these two characters, and it's not the one you're thinking of that happens later, but it was like right before that, and I felt like it kind of ended a bit abruptly. I don't know. I just felt like I was like, that was quick. I thought that was gonna be a whole thing because in the last movie, between this character was like, oh yeah, we're gonna have this like, I hate this guy, tortured me and like killed my family. I was like, I feel like there should have been more to that. I was like, that was a bit abrupt, but that's just more of a nitpick. I still thought it was a pretty badass scene, but it was a bit of a nitpick for me. But yeah, let's get on to my final verdict. So here's the big question. You probably heard me say this. Is Dune Part 2 good? Simple answer is, it's it's good. Was I expecting a good movie? Yes. Was I expecting a masterpiece? Not entirely, but I really do feel like Dune Part 2 is one of the greatest sequels ever made. It is outstanding. From a visual standpoint, a story standpoint, even acting wise, you could tell there is just so much that's been learned and improved on from Part 1. It is incredible what Denis Villeneuve has done with Dune Part 2. And I cannot wait to see what he does next. Even after he's done Dune. I know Masai said he's going to move on from it. But I cannot wait to see what this guy does next. Denis does next. I've been a huge fan for a long time, ever since I saw Blade Runner, 2049, and Arrival, and Sicario. It's just, he knows what he's doing. He's a filmmaker that you should absolutely look out for. And it's no certain in mind that Dune Part 2, even on its second viewing, I still stand as one of the best movies of the 20th century. This and Dune Part 1, I stand. If you put them both together as one movie, it's a perfect 10 out of 10 movie. But Dune Part 2, I stand as a 10 out of 10, but I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10 score. What I will say is, I strongly, strongly recommend you see Dune Part 2 in theaters right now. It's one of the best movies of the year so far, and I cannot recommend this movie more. So yeah, go see Dune Part 2 if you can. If you can see it in IMAX, see it in IMAX. If you can see it in any large format theater you can, watch it. It's so good. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video for my review for Dune Part 2. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And once again, thank you for watching. And this is N0VA 198 signing out.